much. I'd just like to welcome you guys here. I'm so happy to be here this evening, and I'd like to first of all give thanks to the people who have set up the startup school, the other fellow instructors, as well as Cleo Pike, who is the administrator and the manager for the startup school, and also Dr. Sean Wise, who is the head of the entrepreneurial startup school. So thank you for taking your time to come to this evening's event, and again, I apologize for some of the technical difficulty. There were animations and slides, transitions built into the slide presentation. Unfortunately, those transitions are not going to happen. That was aimed at wowing you, so you'll just have to be wowed by my personality. Anyway, so again, welcome this evening. I'm going to give you a little bit about my background, just so to show you basically how it ties in terms of relationship building. And also, this evening, let's see if we've got the agenda coming here. So I'm going to give you a little bit about my background, and we're going to do a little quick recap and review, because I know you had reading week last week, and the week before, Dr. Sean Wise actually spoke, and he spoke about the business model canvas. And so I'm going to do a little recap on that, thank you. And also, we are going to talk about the business model canvas, as well as key partnerships, and some of the basics. We're going to take a 15-minute break, come back, and then we're going to look at some of the partnership agreements and some of the key areas in partnership agreements that you want to be able to look at when you're thinking about forming partnerships. And also, we're going to do a couple of case studies, really interesting one right out of this startup school, 500px, which is a photo sharing community. I'm sure you guys know about it. And we're going to look at some of those partnerships that they have, as well as a very interesting case study. How many people here have seen the movie Straight Outta Compton? All right. So we're going to take a look at that movie, but we're going to take a look at the narrative through the lens of entrepreneurship. And we're going to take a look at the partnerships that went into putting that particular project together. And then I'm going to leave you with some key takeaways. That way you can have these nuggets of wisdom when you're thinking about forming partnerships. So just by a show of hands, how many people here are full-time students at Ryerson right now? Wow. Okay, how many people actually have a business that they're running? Okay. How many people are actually thinking about entrepreneurship? And how many people are just really curious what this is all about? Okay, that's good. All right. Okay, and how many people are my cheering section? All right, so just to give you a little bit of history about me, I have worked in 3 key sectors, and I cut my teeth professionally and started gathering some business acumen in financial services. I started for a third-party administrator on the reception desk, and if you know about business, it's not good to be dismissive to the receptionist, because that is the key point of contact for your business. That is the ambassador for your business. Now imagine if somebody was calling with a tremendous book of business and the receptionist was rude to that person. That's business walking away from your business. So every area of your business is critical. If you're thinking about a startup, if you're thinking about running your business, every particular operational area, including reception, is critical to the success of your business. My first boss was actually Ray Chang, the late Ray Chang, who was the former chancellor of the continuing education program at Ryerson. I was the 23rd employee in the company, and by the time I left, there were over 390 employees, so had an opportunity to see a lot of growth in that organization. Then I transitioned to international development and had a chance to do some very interesting work internationally in Ghana, Ethiopia, Senegal, Burkina Faso, Paraguay, and a lot of really interesting countries, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Also, I had an opportunity to work in government as the Director of Partner Services, and that was brokering the relationship between the municipal government, the provincial government, and the federal government. So I was the person who was making sure that everybody was happy on all levels in terms of relationship. So here are some, the pictures speak 1,000 words. Here are some of the experiences that I had. Now, one of the first opportunities that I had to work in terms of partnership was I was working with one of Canada's leading NGOs, and one of the first collaborative or partnership joint ventures that we had to do was with the Clinton Foundation. And so we were building a pediatric wing on a pediatric wing in Ethiopia in one of the pioneering HIV/AIDS hospitals. And the Clinton Foundation came on as a partner to build the actual physical building. Then the Albert Einstein College of Medicine was a part of the team in terms of training the medical staff on the ground in Ethiopia. The NGO I worked for actually was providing the procurement. And this was an amazing, successful collaborative. I had an opportunity to hear Bill Clinton, and I had an opportunity to meet him. Actually, I'm standing talking to somebody from the Canadian High Commission, and all of a sudden I hear this southern drawl, "Excuse me, are you Carol Roberts? Excuse me, you in the striped jacket." And I look around, and it was like one of those out-of-body experiences. I thought, is he talking to me? I felt like Robert De Niro from Taxi Driver or whatever. Is he talking to me? And sure enough, he was thanking me for helping to put the collaborative together. And I can tell you, I understand the charisma and the allure of the man. Now, this is the opportunity that I had to work in Paraguay. And this young child actually represents one of thousands of kids that we did a deworming campaign with. And this was to extract intestinal worms from the children's stomachs. And if I can borrow your water bottle for a second, thanks. So the intestinal worms that were removed from, let's say, a child like that would fill 3/4 of this bottle. And so we were able, thank you very much, we were able to do that and help 5,000 children in Paraguay to get clean drinking water and also remove the intestinal worms. These are some colleagues from India and Ethiopia, and one of the things about building relationships, they're lifelong relationships. So I'm still very much in contact with a lot of the colleagues that I work with, and I had an amazing opportunity last year to speak at City Hall at the business, it was the Global Change Initiative, and it was a business conference that actually addressed stakeholder engagement as well as the environment. And of course, here is at Ryerson at the Ted Rogers School of Management. And again, I will be blessed to be returning next month speaking on leadership, 007 leadership lessons from James Bond. So, okay. Now, I want to talk about one of the strangest experiences that I ever had in terms of relationship building. When I was in Ghana, my program manager said to me, "Carol, it is customary for us to take a gift to the village chief when we go into the region to do rural assessments." And so Ghana, I didn't realize, and much of West Africa is still under tribal rule. So when you go into a region to do a program assessment, it is customary to take the village chief a gift. And in our case, the customary gift was the head of a cow and 2 hooves. So can you imagine me receiving the package and having to walk up to the chief and say, "Here you go"? Now, try that with a venture capitalist or somebody here in Canada, and you'd be locked up in the loony bin. Anyway, these are some of the micro-enterprise programs that I visited. This is a shea butter making project. This is a school uniform, as well as a composting project in Ghana and Burkina Faso, soap making factory. These are all small businesses, micro businesses that are funded by micro-enterprise loans, as well as Ethiopia, leathered goods being sold and distributed by actually sex trade workers. Had the opportunity also to work on many boards, including the Ontario Trillium Foundation, pumping about $20 million back into community, and also the Teresa Group, which is an HIV/AIDS charity that attends to children and families that are affected by HIV/AIDS, and sat on the board of directors of Sinfonia Toronto as marketing chair and helped with the funding for this orchestra. One of the highlights of my volunteer work was working with this gentleman, the late Jim Sneap, who was a mentor to me. And this was the year of the gun, when Toronto had a lot of violence. And we brought a program from Boston to Toronto, and it helped to reduce the crime in the city by 75% by adopting that program. So that was an amazing experience. Mentoring is something that is built into my business model, and a couple of my mentors come right from here at Ryerson. And I don't know, you know, Joshua Duong and Kieran Singh, and this is another one of my mentees. And I had an opportunity to be a career mentor for Youth in Motion, and we had busted about 200 girls across the city. Okay, so my consulting services include business development, planning, strategy, and everything is sifted through the business model lens. And I help companies discover additional streams of income, and I tell them where they're bleeding, and I also tell them where they're missing out on opportunities. And also, I'm a firm believer in terms of giving back to the business community, and doing things like this particular lecture is something that really warms my heart. I love doing this stuff, and of course mentoring. So I want to share a story that profoundly affected my life in terms of how I think about heroes, how I think about entrepreneurship. And this particular, well, it's not this particular individual, but I met a woman when we were in Ghana. We had a dinner for people living with AIDS, and after everybody started leaving the dinner, one woman in particular hung back, and she asked me, she said, "Carol, can you stay here with me?" And I kind of looked at her because she looked a little crazy, and so I thought, it's getting dark. We're not in metropolitan Toronto where we have street lights. I had to think about, I got to make my way back to the hotel with just a flashlight. And so she's like, please, just stay with me. So she said, "This is the greatest night of my life." And I thought, greatest night of my life? And she said, yeah, because my life is so different now than it was a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, I was infected with HIV/AIDS by my husband. I got sicker and sicker, and as I really realized that something is drastically wrong, I found out I was HIV/AIDS positive. I confronted my husband, and he beat me up so badly and pretty much left me for dead in the street. And then when I thought it could get no worse, my husband defecated on me. So pretty much just took a crap on this woman. And a community worker found her in the street and took her cardigan off, cleaned her up, and got her to the hospital. And they were able to give her antiretroviral treatment. One of the things she said to me was, "Thank you and your staff so much," because my job was overseeing grant funding for microenterprise programs and education and whatnot. And she said, "Because of you, I was able to get better." And she said, "Actually, I've gone on. I own my own business. I have a stall. I sell sneakers and sports apparel. And I've actually gone on to replicate my business in 2 other communities. But for a year, people used to spit on me, and they would, I used to have to wipe saliva off my face for a whole year. When she returned from the hospital, they also put her in with her family, think it would be a better environment for her other than living with her husband. And she said it was worse because her relatives had her sleep on the floor, and they would sweep the dust of the house into the corner where she was lying on the floor. So she said, coming from that to sitting here drinking a beer with you in perfect weather, looking at the moon, is like my life is so good. And she said, and now, after all of that, I am a respectable businesswoman. And I tell this story because one of the things that happened when I went back to the hotel room, I absolutely wept because I remember how pissed off I was when I was writing grants with my team. There's a time difference between the countries. Sometimes, like India has a 10.5-hour difference between here and Toronto, so I'd be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, writing grants. And I just thought, what an absolute inconvenience this is. And I never equated the person at the end of the grant. All I thought about is I have to adhere to 119 grading instruments, and I'm not getting any sleep. But I never thought about the effort that goes into it until I met this woman. And heroes come in so many different flavors, and I have to tell you, I knew then and there I was in the midst of a hero. And I thought, what a sense of resilience this woman had to go through all of that and say, now I'm a respected businesswoman, and to replicate her business over a couple of communities. That's something that would always stay with me. Anyway, so I want to profile the entrepreneur, and I know we have a few people here who identified that they are interested in startups, they're interested in entrepreneurship. And one thing, we are all a part of the same, tribe. And one of the things that we all have in common, we're creators, we're visionaries, we're adventurers, we're curious, we ask a lot of questions, we're intrepid, brave, courageous, we're risk takers, and we're out-of-the-box thinkers and non-conformists. That's the best part. And a little bit crazy, we're a little bit cray-cray. But more than anything, we're heroes because we want to make a dent in the universe. We want to make a contribution so that we leave this world a little bit better than we found it. So it's great to be a part of that. Now, anybody who knows me knows I love movies. Do I love movies? I love movies. And my favorite movie is Scarface. Then I love Kill Bill 1 and 2. And I love the part with Vivica Fox and Uma Thurman in the kitchen with the little knife. I love the fighting in the snow. And the other movie I love is 300. I love this movie, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, 2 hours of guys who are buff beating their chests in their underwear. That's probably why she likes the movie, right? No, I like the movie because of the spirit of determination. The odds are against you. You still want to fight. You want to kick some butt. And your mentality is that we're going to win at no matter what the cost. So I believe that sharing is definitely caring. And there's a lot of great resource materials in terms of startup, entrepreneurship. And I'm just going to give you a couple of the books that I particularly love. The 4 Steps to the Epiphany by Steve Blank, an amazing book. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. You guys are going to have the slide deck. So if whatever you're not able to take the notes on, this slide deck will be available to you. And Startup Opportunities by Sean Wise and Brad Feld. Now, if you guys had a chance to take a look at his show on YouTube, The Naked Entrepreneur, there is an excellent interview with Brad Feld, and it talks about the journey of the entrepreneur. One of the most remarkable interviews. Do yourself a favor and take a look at that interview on YouTube. Okay? Now, the other 3 books is The Business Model Generation. This should be a standard in your personal library, Running Lean, and the Startup Owner's Manual, step-by-step guide for building a great company. Okay, this is a tool that I use that helps me to keep my mental game. It's something that's actually free online. There's a PDF version of this. It's a 61-page manual, and it's called Seek and Destroy by Peter Shallard. And it talks about all the obstacles and the things that entrepreneurs encounter, things like procrastination, losing your momentum, getting in a rut. And it's a great book if you want to get your mental game back. So take a look at that and make sure that you pick that up. And it's actually free. You can get it online. Okay. So there's 2 different mindsets. So everybody else, regular folks, thinks like there's opportunity is nowhere. And the way the entrepreneur thinks is opportunity is now here. And I just heard this story about a guy who invested in an apartment building. It was an amazing building, and then the city decided to do some zoning reallocation and decided to run a train station right through the path of the apartment building. Well, this guy, all of his investment went down the tubes because all of his residents moved out because they couldn't take the noise of the railway station running through their neighborhood. Another guy picks up the real estate, sees this as an amazing opportunity. He picks up the real estate for like next to nothing price, and he makes it a residence for the deaf. And he makes more and more money off. So it's like, if you think like an entrepreneur, what looks like, one man's rubbish is another man's treasure. Okay. So Going back to that story with Judy, that woman, the hero has 1,000 faces. Now, Steve Blank, who is a Silicon Valley serial entrepreneur, he has a book that taught the 4 steps to the epiphany. And this is what he has to say about the entrepreneur, and I'm just going to read this. He says, the hero's journey is an apt way to think of startups. All new companies and new products begin with almost a mythological vision, a hope of what could be, with a goal that few others can see. It's this bright and burning vision that differentiates the entrepreneur from the big company CEOs and startups from existing businesses. Founding entrepreneurs are out to prove that their vision and business are real and not some hallucination. To succeed, they must abandon the status quo and strike out on what appears to be a new path, often shrouded in uncertainty. Obstacles, hardships, disaster lie ahead. And their journey to success tests more than their financial resources. It tests their stamina, agility, and the limits of their courage. And I think if you are on the path to entrepreneurship, that is something that you really need to be prepared for. You're going to have you're the protagonist of the story. You're going to have obstacles, but eventually, if you persevere, you're going to win. So I love this marketer extraordinaire and thought leader. His name is Seth Godin. I don't know how many people have read any Seth Godin? Oh, a few people. Yeah, he's a great modern day thought leader. He's very quirky, a lot of wisdom, simple wisdom. But this is one of my favorite quotes by Seth Godin. He says, fail fast and cheap, fail often, and fail in a way that doesn't kill you. And I would add to that, doesn't kill your business. So we've got the great Renaissance painters. We've got Picasso. We've got Kandinsky. And just as these great artists need a canvas to express and visualize their masterpiece, the entrepreneur needs a canvas to do the same. So, introducing the business model canvas. And this is what we're going to be looking at tonight. We're going to be studying or just taking a look at one segment of the canvas. So the canvas, how many people know about the business model canvas? Okay. And how many people don't know about the business model canvas? Okay, so there's just a few. Okay, so this business model canvas is basically, it's more of a foundation than a business plan. It kind of makes the business plan a little obsolete, but these are the 9 segments. So you have, central to the business model canvas is the value proposition. This is, what is your strategic, unique advantage? This is your product, your service. Then you have your customer relationships, your customer segments, your revenue streams, your distribution channels, how you're going to get your product to market, the key resources, key activities that you need to do, and then also the revenue costs and also the key partners. And that's the area that we're going to focus on tonight. So the business model canvas has replaced the old conventional business plan. It doesn't mean you don't have to write a business plan. It just means that if you want to iterate or you want to create new products, the business model canvas is a much more fluid way of actually coming up with new services and new products because of the way that it's laid out with these 9 segments. It also visually frames your work or your project. It's a living document. It's not like a business plan where you would, the old conventional business plans, you put them on the shelf and then it becomes a rusty dusty. It's a workable plan and it's centered around your value proposition, and also it helps you to iterate and refresh your business strategy. The definition of a partnership is when 2 or more commercial entities form an alliance. And here we go. Okay, so this is Facebook's business model canvas. As you can see right here, this is the value proposition. They are to connect you with your friends and your family to discover and learn and express yourself. How many people here are on Facebook? All right, almost everybody. And also to reach relevance, social content and engagement, and also personalized and social experience and social distribution payments. Now, in terms of relationship, they talk about same side effects and cross side effects. This is the influence that people who use Facebook have on other people and people who don't have on Facebook. Customer segments are the internet users. Also, advertisers are part of what they consider to be their customer segment. and developers. In terms of revenue streams, well, it's free for us, but in terms of the advertisers, they pay for the advertisement, their payment revenues, as well as ad revenues. In terms of distribution channels, it's the website, it's the mobile apps, and Facebook ads and Facebook pages, and also developer tools and APIs. In terms of the key activities, their platform development, their data center and operation management, and in terms of key resources, it's the Facebook platform, where Facebook spends most of their money is on the servers. So keeping your data, your pictures, all of the quirky things that you have in terms of your account, they have to have servers to hold all of that data. That's where they spend most of their money. So that's why now you'll notice that they have more advertisers on Facebook. Also, in terms of cost structure, there's the data center costs, there's marketing and sales, there is research and development, and of course there's general administration. In terms of key partnerships, it's mostly the content partners. So people like Huffington Post or celebrities or any other like TV shows or movies or music, articles, anything that fills the content for Facebook. Okay, so 5 key questions that you need to ask are: which partners are critical to your business? What types of partnerships best suit your needs? Who are your critical suppliers? Which suppliers and partners are sourcing your key resources? And what is the best cluster supply chain where you should be located? Okay, there are 4 kinds of motivations behind forming partnerships, and you need partners to basically carry out your value proposition, whatever your product or service is. Also to be able to optimize, and also to take advantage of the economy of scale. And because you're dealing in volume, obviously, then you have the reduced costs carrying out that. Also enable to mitigate risk. So if you are partnering with somebody who is an expert in the field, then you're reducing your risk because they know that particular market. And you're minimizing your uncertainty. And also you have the advantage of the acquisition of particular resources and activities as well. Now, there are 4 types of partnerships, and I'm just going to briefly go through each one of them. And they are strategic alliances, co-opetition, joint ventures, and buyer-supplier. And the first one is strategic alliance. Strategic alliances are partnerships in which 2 or more companies work together to achieve objectives that are mutually beneficial. And this is usually between non-competitors. So a good example of a strategic alliance would be Oprah's strategic partnership with Starbucks Coffee. And one of the things that's really interesting about this particular partnership, I didn't realize this, that the worldwide tea market is $90 billion. There's a lot of tea drinkers. And so you think of it from Howard Schultz's position. Howard Schultz is the CEO of Starbucks. He's probably thinking Oprah has a very distinct customer segment. They are interested in wellness, holistic, health. They are the yoga moms. They are the single people who are interested in a healthy lifestyle. But the advantage in terms of Starbucks is that they get this segment of customer that they normally wouldn't have. And from Oprah's point of view, it's a win-win for her because she has her brand of tea, and then she can fund her philanthropic or altruistic pursuits. She has a girls' academy in South Africa, and she can use the proceeds by partnering with Starbucks towards her philanthropic venture. So it's a win-win for everyone. Starbucks gets to enter a market that they're not in, or gets access to a customer a customer segment that they normally wouldn't have, and she gets the benefit of having the proceeds go to her philanthropic ventures. Okay, co-opetition. Co-opetition is exactly what it sounds like. It's a hybrid between collaboration and competition. And so it's a strategic collaboration between 2 competitors. And a really good example of this is the MLS system. So this is the multiple listing service used by real estate agents is a great example of a permanent cooperative listing properties so that competitive realtors can effectively find properties for their customers, their clients. A joint venture is actually a partnership formed to develop new business. So it's like when two businesses get together and they have a baby. So a good example of that would be sort of Ford and Toyota. They get together, they make a hybrid model of a car, or they make hybrid trucks for the European market. And joint ventures, in terms of joint activities, it may lead to reduction in transportation costs, packaging costs, or information costs. And these are potential reasons really to partner. And they also may increase managerial efficiencies. Because of the synergy and the expertise that you have at hand, it actually ups your game in terms of having access to that expertise. And here is an example, a really good example of a joint venture. So Pepsi wanted to enter into the fast food market and wanted to make sure that they had an assured distribution channel for their products. So they acquired Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC. And the buyer-supplier partnership, this is the most common type of partnership, which assures that you have a reliable source of supplies coming in, and your supplier, for your supplier, this means that they have a steady, confirmed buyer for their particular product. So there are 5 key factors in forming partnerships. You've got to really keep in mind that you want to form the right partnerships. You want to make sure that you have the right partnership agreements in place. You also want to make sure that you define your expectations upfront. And also, central to that, you have to think about the impact on your customer. As well, the intention of creating win-win scenarios. Okay, now these are some of the intangibles. These are things that you cannot quantify, you cannot put a dollar value on, but they are some of the most critical things that you really need to consider when you're forming partnerships or relationship management. In terms of values, do you have similar values? Conflict, how is your prospective key partner going to deal with conflict? As well as work ethic, what's their effectiveness, their commitment, their working style? Integrity, do you trust them? Is it based on emotion or is it based on hard data? And also cultural sensitivity and intelligence. Are you aware culturally? So would you take the head of a cow and the hooves to a meeting here in Toronto, or would you just leave that for Ghana? Okay, now we're going to look at just some of the very basic and high-level partnership agreements, what should be in it, and I'm just going to go through just briefly the partnership agreement. So why do you need a partnership agreement? Usually there's just about 3 reasons. You want to have business structure, you want to have the outline for the business on the day-to-day operations and the function, as well as you want to know who's responsible for what. And this forces everybody to get on the same page from the onset. You need it for a dispute resolution, and every relationship has disagreements, and this is especially true in relationships where a lot of decisions have to be made. So a really carefully crafted business partnership agreement allows you to outline how disputes are going to be handled. And also in terms of exit strategies, more entrepreneurs don't take care of this little piece of business than imagined. So having an exit strategy, I had to get my tongue around that, in case there's things like incompetence or death or, divorce. Okay? So the key elements of a partnership agreement, it's always good to get a lawyer and seek legal counsel. It can be expensive, so I highly recommend that you kind of do your homework up front. So it's up to you to find out what the key elements are so that when you get in the presence of a lawyer, you know what questions to ask. And one of the things, again, you want to do is make sure that you have your expectations clear up front, and you consider, again, the impact on your customer and your client, and also promote a win-win situation. Now, this is what I call the 6 Ds of the partnership agreement. These are key things that should always be included amongst many things, but these are the 6 that I'll go through. So there's death. What happens if one of the partner dies? Disagreement. What happens if the partner reaches an impasse and irreconcilable difference? Now, I'll give you an example. This is so funny. When I was working in insurance, we did a asset management quotation software, and we were working with an IT company, and the 2 partners were at loggerheads with one another. So they couldn't come to a resolution, so we actually literally they weren't speaking, they stopped speaking with each other, and we wanted to bring this software to market. So literally, I had to go and sit with one partner and bounce his baby on a leg at his home, and then go and sit on go to the other partner's home just to get this software to bear. So if you had a partnership agreement in place, we wouldn't have to do all of that. In terms of debt, what happens if the partner becomes financially insolvent and declares bankruptcy? A divorce. How do you want to handle this contingency? Because sometimes with a divorce settlement, they may say, oh, the husband is going to get part of the business partnership, or the wife is going to get part of the business partnership. So you have to make contingency plans for that as well. Disability. What happens if one of the partners is hurt and is no longer able to contribute to the time and talent to the partnership? And also dissolution. What happens if the partnership falls apart? Again, if there's incompetency, they're not carrying out the plan as agreed upon. So your partnership agreement should include things like the name of the partnership. As we discussed earlier, there are different types of partnerships. So let's say you had a joint venture, and the joint venture is named something completely different. You would need the name of the partnership, what you're doing business under, as well as the term and duration, because sometimes the partnerships are not during the life cycle of your business. Sometimes it's a limited partnership. And also, a partnership can be perpetual, but it can be very short term. And I'm going to give you an example a little bit later with 500px. They have a digital partner, and that is very short term. They've just recast their logo. And so I'm going to show you a short video later on that partnership. The purpose of the partnership. What activities is the partnership engaging in? What products or services will be sold? And how will new products or services be added? And contribution of each partner. Is it going to be in cash? Is it going to be deferred contribution installments? Is it going to be property or a particular type of service? And we need to know about the terms around the contribution of each partner, and how will future contributions affect the partner share, and how will the profit or losses be distributed amongst the partners? Will it be equal, unequal, percentages, etc.? And in terms of retention of the profits for business needs, under what circumstances must the partners refrain from taking out profits? You should also look at distribution of profits and allocation of losses to each partner, and how are the profits and losses allocated to partners for the purpose of the partnership percentages. Management power, so you need to, what's the distribution of power? What's the rules of engagement in terms of who handles certain duties, including skills contributed, hours of work, and for each partner? And how are key decisions made as well? Financial matters, including periodic financial statements, financial reporting. Meetings. When are meetings held? Maintenance of records. Where and how are your partnership records kept? And partner time off. So you've got a partner, you've got to work out who's going to be handling the business when one is, let's say, taking mat leave with their spouse or partner. And vacation time, how is the business going to operate? And those are things that you need to take into consideration up front. As well as outside business activities. Are outside business activities permitted or not? Are they considered conflicts of interest? And ownership of the business assets, as well as the transfer of the partner interest. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list, but these are some of the high-level things that you really do need to take into consideration. And there are a lot of checklists that you can check online. They have some partnership agreement checklists, just standard templates that you may want to take a look at online as well. And sale of partner interest or partnership. Again, here are some of the softer sides of the skill set that need to be taken into consideration. I'm not talking about the technical side because there is partnership relationship management software that if you really needed to refine that relationship and have a dashboard and really be able to do an environmental scan and have more of your hand on the pulse in terms of your partnership. We're not going to talk about that, but those are things that you may want to take into consideration as well in terms of software that helps you manage the relationship. The softer skills are things like mutual respect. I would say communication, 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 regularly seeking out communication, transparency, being really up and honest. If you're losing money in the business and you have a partner, you need to tell them. Cultural sensitivity, we talked about that. And more that we engage in globalization and you're thinking about going global. I just spoke to somebody who was thinking about having a startup and doing business in the Congo. That is something that you really have to do your homework. I remember when I was in Ethiopia, we were doing a business lunch, and I didn't know this when I was in Ethiopia. Most Ethiopians are Coptic Christians, and they fast every Friday. So I invite this person some relationship business meeting, and out of politeness, he says, yes, so I'll go to lunch with you. And I'm sitting there the whole time for the hour and a half, and I'm eating. He's not eating, he's drinking water. And when I ask him, why aren't you eating? He says, well, this is my fast day. Now, had I done my homework about the culture ahead of time, I would have known that, and it wouldn't have been awkward for business building and trying to build relationship. And I would say, ask questions and clarify, clarify, clarify. When you look at the interview with Brad Feld and Sean Wise, he gives an account of some of the obstacles he comes by, but he said some of the best relationships are the ones where everybody is not afraid to be vulnerable. And I really think when you're thinking about partnerships and you're thinking about who do I really want to get in bed with in terms of not in real life, but metaphorically, you want to think about things like asking questions and clarifying, making sure you're on the same page and doing an audit. Often, and my friends are here and they will tell you, I will often check in with them and I will say to them, hey, how can I be a better friend to you? What can I do to improve the friendship? And it takes them aback, but they know that I'm intentional about building a quality relationship with them. And the same can be said for you and your business as well. So we're going to do our first little bit of case study or examination. And 500px is an organization that's right out of this particular incubator. How many people here know 500px? Only a couple people? Did you guys know it was out of this incubator? I mean, this is a really amazing success story. It's a Toronto-based photo sharing community. So the general public has high quality photographs. They can upload, they can share, and they can sell and buy. And I'll give you a little bit of information I'm going to read from this about 500px, because this is so important because it's out of this school. Okay, so this company partners with business partners and the general public, but 500px is amazing because what they do is they allow the public to upload their photographs, and they charge the public $50 per year for a premium account, and it allows them to create unbranded portfolio websites. And for those wishing to sell photos online, 500px collects a 5% commission on all printing sales. So it's an excellent service, and they have partnered with the general public. So we're talking about key partnerships. So they partnered with the general public. Of course, they're getting funding from venture capitalists, and one of the venture capital companies that has invested in them is Visual China Group, and also Shestock. And Shestock, very interesting about Shestock. Shestock is a compelling and a visceral female-centric images portal that have images created exclusively by professional women photographers. And they have partnered with them, as well as Google Play and Focus Lab. That is an example of a limited partnership and for a specific purpose in terms of their brand. but also taking into consideration their value proposition and what they have to offer the general public. So now we're going to move on to case study number 2. And I know there's a couple guys over there that are interested in this case study. This is straight out of Compton, and I want to challenge you to think really differently about this. This, for those of you who don't know what Straight Out of Compton is, this is a story, a biopic about a rap group that came out of Compton and defied the odds, talked about, their narrative is that they use their music to talk about the political situation in their neighborhood, to talk about police brutality, their underserved community. But what's more remarkable about this story is how a few of these protagonists in the story, real life people, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, MC Ren, Dr. Dre, and DJ Yella. And I'm going to focus on these guys, Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and Eazy-E. When we're looking at this particular story through the lens of the narrative, through the lens of the entrepreneur, the number one thing when we talked about the business model canvas, we talked about knowing your value proposition. So if we look in the person of Ice Cube, he knew his value proposition was his intellectual collateral. He knew that he was a high creative and that his raps were worth something. And they got into partnership with the wrong person. So they signed the wrong contract. They didn't read the fine print, the red herring, and they got into bed with the wrong partner. So remember back to the beginning when I talked about the Seth Godin quote about fail fast and often, fail fast and often, fail in a way that doesn't kill you. It said fail fast and cheap, fail often, and fail in a way that doesn't kill you. This story is a cautionary tale because they failed fast, but they didn't fail cheap. Ice Cube got out of the game, got out of the contract really quickly, and was able to go on and form another group, go on to meet with a lot of success, and also start up in terms of entrepreneurship, clothing line, motion pictures. He's now for years has many motion pictures in the works, and he's gone on to unbelievable success. Dr. Dre, who was the producer of the group, stayed in with Jerry Heller a little bit too long, and it cost him. And then when he wanted to get out of his contract, he made another fatal mistake by getting involved in a partner which had, how do I say, they didn't share the same values. So I'll say that much. And it cost him because the partnership that he entered into, that partnership ended up keeping all of his masters, and these masters were worth millions of dollars. So in order for him to get out of the partnership, he had to go on then and leave that behind. But knowing, again, his value proposition, he was able to recreate and recast, have his production company, Aftermath. How many people have headphones Beats by Dre? Anybody here? Oh, a couple people here. Then sell that company for $3-point-something billion to iTunes, and then go on to unparalleled success. So, you know, these guys are like Phoenix rising from the ashes. It's a great urban tale. It's a tale of the entrepreneurial spirit. And also, you know, it's a cautionary tale about picking poor partners. It's talking about negligent in reading the partnership agreement in terms of, let's say, lean startup. It's talking about learning about what didn't work and pivoting and also recalibrating and pivoting after failure and setting out in a new direction. Also, it's the entrepreneur's journey and narrative of overcoming obstacles. But then it's also one of you know, winning and meeting with success. So I want to take a look at the other side of the business. One of the things I told you guys earlier is that I love movies, and I love to wait until the very end of the movie. How many people here actually wait until the last credits roll and they sit back? That's right. I sit back and I wait for those credits to roll because one of the things that really interests me is I want to know what city was it filmed in, who did they work with, who were the craft services. I want to know how many partnerships actually went into making this particular project, right? I see you guys nodding over there because think about it. In the opening week of Straight Outta Compton, they were the dark horse. Nobody expected them, no pun intended. They were they were the sort of the underdog. Nobody expected them to actually do as well as they did. They made 57 million in their opening week, and I think worldwide right now it's over 300 million. I mean, it's amazing. And now they are planning to replicate and do other narratives and other stories, but it's a phenomenon. How many people like Ronda Rousey, UFC Ultimate Fighting Challenge? Yeah, Ronda Rousey. So she's pretty badass. Anyway, so Straight Outta Compton, the Universal Pictures, they have a partnership with the UFC. So these are all the partnerships that went into this production. And this is a project that has replicated itself and gone worldwide. So Universal Pictures is a part of the, they do the release of the movie. Interscope, is Universal Music, does the music. Beats by Dre, of course, is the audio company. Apple, iTunes, you can download. Northern Kingdom, this is really interesting. And I loved reading about Northern Kingdom because I'm a marketer at heart. I'm a marketer at heart, and I thought that the marketing behind the partnership with Northern Kingdom and their partnership with the public was a stroke of brilliance. How many people have seen that Straight Out of Somewhere meme? How many people have used the Straight Out of Somewhere meme? I know I have. Okay, so it was, and I'm going to show you a couple. I'm going to digress for a second and show you a couple of my favorites. Anyway, they also partnered with social media. It got something like 60 million hits or shares around social media. So with Northern Kingdom, they helped the brand of Straight Out of Compton to be ubiquitous, to go global, and also in the merchandising company with the t-shirts and the paraphernalia, and also the general public helped to further the brand by co-branding and co-partnering with the public. And I'm going to show you some of my favorite memes. Okay, now, this is one of my favorite gals, Serena Williams. She actually is Straight Outta Compton. So she's posted that. I like the one in the middle, this guy, Straight Outta Bacon. And then this is somebody else's sense of humor, Straight Out of Kimye. And the one on the left is me at a friend's pool. I got in on the action. I'm like straight out of the pool. And then one of my childhood friends, Straight Out of Flemo. I'm from Flemington Park. And also, this has been used to further social consciousness, and this is Straight Out of Patience, Black Lives Matter. So you can see how partnering with the public, using the public and their own self-interest can help to also further your brand and your value proposition as well. Now, I'm not going to go through a Simple Laundry, but they are also a Canadian startup. They are in the throes of recalibrating and trying to figure out the right product mix. But they have partnered with several local online delivery services, and their partnerships have been really intentional. If you get a chance to take a look at Simply Laundry, it's a great little startup. Now, key partners, here are some of the pearls of wisdom that I really want to leave you with. And then I'm going to leave some time for us to, for you guys to ask some questions and for us to sort of network and get to know one another. So, essential in carrying out your business, key partners, if you don't have a key partner and you don't pay attention to that relationship, that's the life and death of your business. Also, you need key partners to leverage your strategic relationships. Going back to that example I gave you with Oprah and Starbucks, there's a lot of methodology and strategy that goes into thinking, how is this going to work where you get what you want and I get what I want? And that's what you want to think about. That's a lens you want to think about in terms of key partnerships. It also helps you to enter new markets, provide you with access to new customers, and helps you to expand your resources. Ooh, somebody doesn't like that. And also helps you to reduce your costs. Now, here are some of the key takeaways that I really want to leave you with, because there's pizza waiting and I don't want it to get cold and I want to take your questions. Number one, these are the 7 imperatives. Know what you're worth, know what your value proposition is, know what you're getting into and for how long, know what you're getting out of. Have a really firm exit strategy in place, and remember that key partnerships can actually make or break your business. and be culturally aware and sensitive. Also ensure that your value proposition is central to everything, and always put absolutely everything in writing. And I just want to thank you for your patience, and are there any questions?